Those Nights at Rachel's. That is the game we'll be talking about today. Am I excited to talk about this? Originally, yes, I was. It's a classic, and surprisingly, a classic I had actually never seen before. Made by Nixon, also known for this little FNAF game. I'm not totally sure if you've heard of it. It's kind of a little bit under the radar, you know, kind of a little bit underground, you could say, called The Joy of Creation. I was pretty excited to see what this game had in store for me, and then I played it. And after playing it, I can say I honestly thought there would be more to talk about. Expect a shorter video today, because when I tell you that this game is literally a bunch of nothing, I'm not lying. Strap in and get ready to dive into the very small world of Those Nights at Rachel's. Those Nights at Rachel's takes place in a restaurant called Doug's and Rachel's. We play as a newly hired night guard. I'm sure you would have never been able to figure that out. Yes, in fact, we do surprisingly play as a security guard in this Five Nights at Freddy's game. I know that's pretty out of the norm for a FNAF game, but hey, Those Nights at Rachel's was really trying to reinvent the wheel here, break the mold. Let's jump into the first night this game has to offer and really start going over a few of the major flaws I noticed. To start, the office is massive. We've got two big doors, pretty standard, and we've got two monitors, one for your cameras and the other for your door buttons, and a display which shows how much power you have remaining. Finally, there's a spare room off to the side that has some curtains, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But to start, I want to talk about what I personally feel is this game's biggest flaw. The majority of the things in Those Nights at Rachel's are redundant or not useful at all. I could explain every single reason right now, but I think it would be better to explain these problems as they become relevant naturally throughout the game. To start, let's talk about how the door monitor is actually useless completely. Now, you might be thinking, how could the monitor that allows you to close the door be useless? That's like literally the main mode of defense in a lot of FNAF games. Well, here's where we get to talk about something really cool, and something in retrospect I'm not a huge fan of in FNAF games. Keybinds. Keybinds in most games serve to make the experience more comfortable for the user, and in a lot of cases, even in FNAF games, they can be used properly and work effectively. For example, Rachel's uses keybinds in a very good way, that being movement. While playing Those Nights at Rachel's, you'll see several arrows, and it may even look a bit overwhelming. Clicking these arrows will transport you around the office, whether that be turning, traveling to another room, peeking around a corner, or hiding under your desk. Ignoring the fact that these arrows are always present, which could lead to confusion as to when certain actions can be performed, with all of these buttons on screen and the fact we're in a 3D environment, adding keybinds for movement was a very smart idea, as you can use WASD to turn and move and E to peek around corners. This is a very good example of keybind integration into a FNAF game. Now it's time to talk about a very poor integration of the keybinding. Using the Z and X keys, you can shut the two doors in your office. Now, I want to be very clear that mechanic by itself is not inherently a bad thing. Binding doors to a key on the keyboard can work. I think it worked well in a game like Ultimate Custom Night. However, here's the big difference between Ultimate Custom Night and Those Nights at Rachel's. UCM keybinds work not only because a large focus of the game's mechanics centralize around keybinds, actively making keybinding a mechanic of the game itself, but without keybinds, the game would probably be completely impossible. While yes, a lot of the things could be controlled solely by your mouse in UCM, it's also not possible to do multiple things at once with your mouse like is required by UCM. So in that case, I think keybinding works and is good. Those Nights at Rachel's uses keybinding in a way that makes an otherwise interesting mechanic completely useless. You will never have to look at the second monitor in your office throughout your entire playthrough. Adding keybinds to the doors has made it useless, and that's what I mean. And that's the pattern you're going to notice as we continue to talk about the game. Mechanics making other mechanics useless. This is, in my opinion, the prime example of this in Rachel's. But we'll talk about a few more as we go on. On night one, we get a phone call from a teenager who sounds like he's about to neck himself.
Hello and welcome to your new job at Doug's and Rachel's.
before transferring us to a live call with the manager of the establishment.
Hello? Hello? Are you there?
At first, that might sound cool. Popco's did a somewhat similar mechanic where you could interact with the phone guy by asking a question at the end of the call. Rachel's doesn't do that. It just acts as a normal phone call, but that's really nitpicky. We're told the basics of how the nights are going to play out. We're told point blank that the animatronics move around and that we will need to close the doors to defend ourselves, something that isn't typically seen in FNAF games. Transparency? That's nuts. Except not really, because after almost letting out the words "saved my life," the phone guy chooses instead to say "saved my job." So, I mean, not completely transparent, but I guess that's progress. It's also during this phone call where we learn that recently a newer restaurant has been destroying the reputation of Rachel's, that restaurant being Freddy Fazbear's. Now, here's an interesting question. What could have possibly happened at Freddy's that would have made another establishment with robots look bad? Oh yeah, maybe death. Yeah, that'd do the job. I would love to keep talking about the night one phone call, but there's this really funny and quirky moment that happens during it. Something about Rachel's is that the nights are really short. So, and I'm not kidding, the phone call is literally cut short in the middle of a sentence because the night ends.
Sanitary and rude, but customers are customers. We don't need them.
Is this guy gonna shut the fuck up?
Hello and welcome to your new job at Doug's and Rachel's. We have the best animatronics and food available at the lowest prices.
What the fuck?
Straight up guaranteed. Since this is your first night at the job.
Okay. I guess that's night one. What can I say? This is absolute peak cinema, and I've never seen anything better before in my life. But enough about the boring shit. What about what actually happens during the night? Well, if you were hoping for anything at all, put that thought away because literally nothing happens at all. And it's not even for a lore interesting way like FNAF 3, where nothing happens on night one because Springtrap isn't even in the building yet. No, animatronics move on night one in those nights at Rachel's, but they just never make it to your office, something that I promise you will be a common trend throughout your playthrough. But let's talk about the animatronics that activate on night one. Literally every single fucking one aside from 2. Now relax. That may sound intimidating, but keep in mind I said you will never get attacked on this night. The only 2 characters that aren't active are Pete and Bane. However, I'm not going to explain the mechanics of each character that is active on this night right now to save you all from blowing your brains out. Instead, I'll just introduce characters as I talk about the nights and space them out a bit. Let's talk about the 2 characters you'll probably see the most, Rachel and Doug, the 2 faces of the restaurant. I really want to start by talking about Doug, since you will really be seeing him a lot. And I do want to preface that a lot is subjective for this game, since, no fucking joke, I probably had an animatronic reach my office less than 10 times throughout my entire playthrough. That's how much fucking nothing happens during this game, by the way. Doug does what you think a first active animatronic would do. Wanders around the building and eventually makes it to your office. If he gets to your door, you can check by peeking around the corner and flashing your flashlight, which I will admit does look pretty cool. And I think that having to peek him like a game of Valorant is actually a really interesting idea. Too bad I only got to do it about 4 fucking times. Obviously, just close the door and he leaves. Now we can talk about Rachel, except no we can't because she's literally just Doug. She does the exact same thing with no difference. I'm so happy I'm alive. I'm actually pretty sure that throughout my entire playthrough, never once was I attacked by Rachel. You know, the main fucking character in the game. I never saw her aside from in the cameras. Oh, and speaking of the cameras, they are a whole nother issue in and of themselves. They're worthless. Kind of, pretty much. Now, to be fair, I'm aware this game was made really early on in terms of FNAF fan games. So to a degree, you can excuse mechanics not being perfect. But even in the original game, the cameras had a use. Now, I want to make it clear that yes, technically they aren't completely useless. With how infrequently the characters seem to move, it might as well be useless. So let's talk about this game's camera forcer, this game's Foxy, Ray the raccoon. Ray, quite literally, is just Foxy. starts on one camera, has multiple different phases he'll move through before charging at your office and killing you. The way to stop him is easy. Just look at the cameras. I'm not sure if he cares about you watching him specifically or just checking if you're on the cameras in general, but it honestly doesn't matter which one it is because he's the only character on the cameras that even matters, so you should probably just have your camera on him all the time anyways. Dexter, you literally just explained how the cameras aren't worthless, yet you still called them worthless. Why? Why did you do that? That doesn't make sense. It really sounds like you're just being negative for the sake of being negative. While I personally never once saw Ray attack throughout the entirety of my playthrough, you do not have to check on Ray very frequently. Yes, if you never open the cameras, he will more than likely attack you, but even if you just check the camera once every 30 seconds, he's not gonna get you. I don't think looking at the camera for 1 second every 30 seconds is making use of the cameras. A game you could easily compare this to is Five Nights at Freddy's 1, a game that has you do pretty much the same thing. Really just opening the cameras without doing much of anything on them. And while I agree that the cameras in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 are generally useless, there's at least a few useful mechanics that can come from them. For example, we all know that your right door camera is really the only camera that matters, with the occasional check to Foxy to see what phase he's on. You could argue that having to look at 2 cameras rather than just one, like in Rachel's, already makes FNAF 1's camera system more useful, but I feel like that might be grasping at straws a bit. There is one other mechanic that the cameras have that can actually be pretty useful in a small handful of situations, that being forcing Foxy to attack faster using the right hall cam. When Foxy leaves Pirate's Cove, there's a range of time it will take for him to be at your right door. However, you can force the attack to happen sooner by checking the right hall camera, which can be nice if, for example, Bonnie is already at your door and you want to get the Foxy attack out of the way during that time, something I like to take advantage of during stressful modes like 420. I have to be transparent for a moment and mention that there very well might be a mechanic like the right hall mechanic in Rachel's. However, like I've already stated, I've never got attacked by Ray in my playthrough, so I never really got the chance to check, and the wiki doesn't explicitly mention anything like that either, so if it does exist, I walk back my criticism. However, something that you can't neglect is just that. I never got attacked. The cameras are somewhat useful in FNAF 1 because you can do something and you will be attacked by your camera animatronic. There is no FNAF playthrough where you're not attacked by Foxy. There are playthroughs where you're not attacked by Ray, and that's where the real issue actually lies. Anyways, let's move on to Night 2, which introduces Pete and the Thing. Let's start with Pete. He's Doug, except he goes to your other door. However, this does bring up another mechanic that would be interesting if it was actually ever useful: hiding under your desk. Only one door in your office can be closed at a time, so what happens if 2 animatronics attack your doors at the same time? Well, first of all, that's never gonna happen. You don't get attacked frequently enough, but even if it did, that's where hiding under the desk becomes important. If 2 animatronics are at your doors, you close one of them and hide under the desk until the other leaves. But now hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. If hiding under the desk can make the animatronics at your doors go away, do you even need to close the doors in the first place? Well, to my understanding, no. You don't need to close the doors for the door animatronics. You can always just choose to hide under the desk. Excuse me? You've just made an already semi-useless mechanic even more useless by designing another mechanic that solves the same problem without using up power. So the only time you actually ever need to close the door is when Ray is coming to your office, but we've already established that Ray is probably never going to attack you. So you literally never have to close the doors in a FNAF game. What? Okay, so that's pretty stupid. What about the other character on this night? The Thing. Maybe he'll be interesting. No. Hate to break it to you, but the answer is no. The Thing attacks from the curtain room. Throughout the night, the curtains will slowly open. If they open all the way, the Thing will come out and kill you no matter what, since not even hiding will be able to save you, and there's no door to the room he comes from. So every once in a while, you'll have to run to the other room and close the curtains. How frequently do you have to do this? Well, on night 2, doing it once every hour will be enough, but with the lack of movement speed from any of the characters, even on the hardest nights in this game, you will have more than enough time to go over to the curtain and close it. You know it's sad when what I just explained to you is the most difficult threat in the entire game. Throughout the phone calls so far, it's been made clear that the goal of ours and the phone guy is to get a promotion, and the night 3 phone call continues that narrative. The phone guy mentions that the owner of the establishment has gone missing, and that the only reason that bothers him is that nobody can get a promotion unless he's present. So that's obviously concerning for that reason. It's revealed that the owner doesn't want to be tied to the establishment anymore, and I find that a bit weird. I get that Freddy has had a shady past, but from what I understand so far, this place doesn't, at least not directly. That's really all that's important from the phone call, so we can talk about some of the new threats on this night. Let's start with Bane. Fun fact, it's just Pete with a costume on. He does the exact same thing. Also, want to hear something crazy about night 3? From this point forward, it is literally impossible for Rachel to reach your office for the rest of the game, which means she was only ever able to reach your office on nights 1 and 2. But the craziest part? The chances of her ever reaching your office on nights 1 and 2 are borderline impossible because of how infrequently the characters move on the early nights, which means there is a very probable chance that you will not see the main fucking character of the game throughout the entire game. What the fuck kind of logic is that? And that's really it. Something I didn't mention about Bane, by the way, is that during this night, it is borderline impossible for him to make it to your door, so you never have to worry about him either. We love video game balancing over here on the dxtrwhite channel. Night 4's phone call actually has some substance to it. Apparently, the boss is still missing and nobody knows where he is, which now apparently means we won't even get paid for the week we've been doing. Phone guy mentions possibly having corporate find another boss, a better one that would give us the raise we wanted. Phone guy mentions he was snooping around in the back room and found an unlocked phone in a drawer that was apparently the boss's. He says he wasn't able to look through it for long because another employee found him snooping around. The only thing he could see was that the phone had something about an old factory or pizzeria on it. Who really cares about any of that though? Are you ready for the most fun you've ever had playing a FNAF game in your entire life? Well, let me introduce you to night 4, where you'll probably have an animatronic at your door a total of 3 fucking times. Maybe 4 if you're lucky. By the way, I know I'm going to get comments about this, but yes, I am aware about the hard mode version of this game, which, as the name suggests, makes the game harder. However, even in the more difficult version of this game, night 4 is when it really starts to get difficult, except for one super funny problem. There's a bug in the code that prevents both Rachel and Ray from ever attacking unless the power goes out, which means the cameras are literally useless because Ray will never run to your office, so you can just hide under the desk the entire game and occasionally pull the curtains closed. The only other threat in this night is Pete and Bane, but they both attack the right door. Something funny though is that they can't appear in your right doorway if you're looking at it, so you don't even mean to hide under the desk. You can just look at the fucking doorway and they won't come. Granted, if they do get to your door while you're closing the curtains, you only have about 5 seconds to react and close the door or hide under the desk, but still, holy shit, how the hell is hard mode so goddamn easy? Night 5's phone call has some honestly pretty interesting reveals. It's clear that the message we're hearing was meant to be sent to the boss, who we find out's name is Phil, clearly establishing that the phone guy still has contact with him despite his disappearance. However, it's also clear that the phone guy doesn't know where Phil went. Phone guy mentions doing something else to sabotage the business down the street, referring to Freddy's. He says they've already had one incident, so making another one happen is sure to work, which would lead one to believe that they're suggesting they caused whatever the original incident that happened there was, or that they're just wanting to cause another one. When the idea was shot down for bringing up bad rap to animatronics in general, Phone Guy says that he really messed up this time, which would lead me to believe that he had already chosen to do something. It's at this moment that the Phone Guy mentions that they've got us, the character we play as, quote, tied up in our strings. So that's awesome. Thanks, guy. I thought we had something special together, but clearly I was just a piece of eye candy for you to oogle at all day. I thought you loved me. Anyways, the phone guy asks Phil if he's actually going to give us that promotion we apparently were promised. And he says he'd be willing to make up a lie to tell us to make sure that promotion never happens. And in all honesty, the moment I heard that shit, I would have walked right out of that goddamn building. My feelings are crushed, guy. I'm a person too, you know. Night 5 still has the problem of both Rachel and Ray not being able to attack you. The bug carrying over to the non-hard mode version of this game as well now, so that's awesome. Even easier. Perfect. Nothing of interest to talk about here except for what happens after you complete the night. After finishing off Night 5, we get a cutscene inside of what I could only assume to be our bedroom, which for some reason has Rachel's posters on the wall. A little weird, bro, but you do you. We hear a knock at our door, and on the other side we get fucking reamed by the thing, only to wake up inside of the office once again. Apparently just being a bad dream, maybe. Or who knows? Maybe even a premonition of what's to come. Ooh, spooky. But that's really all those nights at Rachel's has to offer. A boring, monotonous gameplay loop that's enough to make me want to rather play with my own skin flute with a cheese grater. It, for some reason, helped shape the fan game scene to what it is today. Does the game look great? Yes. Are the designs good? Of course they are. But can I in all honesty say that the game itself is good? No. No, I cannot. But what about the second game? Oh boy, is that a whole nother bag of worms to dive into? Fuck it, this video has been short so far, so let's soothe our minds and talk about Those Nights at Rachel's 2 Reloaded. To start, no, this game, technically speaking, is not official. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. It's actually been endorsed by Nixon? So, okay, fuck, I guess it is canon. This game was not made by Nixon and was posted on April 1st of 2017, originally designed to be just that, an April Fool's joke. But due to Nixon not wanting to officially continue the series, he decided to jokingly make it canonical to the official lore. Just looking at the title screen of Rachel's 2 would lead you to believe it would be a normal FNAF experience, but in fact, it's not a FNAF experience at all. Pressing play, we load into an office where we can actually walk around. But before you can really get a good feel for your surroundings, we pull out the blicky and shoot the fuck out of one of the robots. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? That's right. Rachel's 2 is a horde-based survival shooter game. With waves of enemies approaching your office, you'll have to pop caps in each and every one of their asses. Each character having its own mechanic, with Doug being your everyday basic zombie, Rachel taking 2 shots to kill, Ray being tiny and running at light speed, and the fucking bull taking about 800 bullets to kill. And of course, there are more characters that I never experienced in my playthrough because this game can honestly get pretty damn hard. Would I recommend you play the second game? No, probably not. But if you want a good laugh and just want to have some retarded fun, then I think Those Nights at Rachel's 2 is definitely something you should give a try. Overall, it's very clear Those Nights at Rachel's has forever left an impact on the FNAF genre. And even though I think, generally speaking, it's pretty bad, I can't deny that it is a classic and a fan favorite, and has greatly helped in growing the very community I care so much about today. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Or is Those Nights at Rachel's actually the best FNAF game ever designed by anyone ever? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In my 5 Nights at Friedrich's video, I asked you guys what the first FNAF Max mode you completed was. My favorite answer is this one by Wonderland VR. They said Ultimate Custom Night, and fucking excuse me? Your first ever Max mode was the hardest official Click Team Max mode that exists? That's nuts, can't even lie. The question of this video is, what is your biggest 5 Nights at Freddy's hot take and why? With the question of the video being asked, subscribe to the channels, buy some merch, I'd appreciate it a lot. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!